And then after, maybe 2 or 3 hours or maybe 2 or 3 days, they're like, this isn't for me, there's nothing there. Doing online arbitrage at scale and getting good at it is just a function of getting up to bat enough. If you spend, a couple of weeks, 2 hours a day, eventually you're going to catch your stride.
Hi, and welcome to Your Selling Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Kirk, aka Your Selling Guide. I'm a small town girl who took a big risk and quit a steady corporate desk job to travel the US in an RV. Along the way, I started selling on Amazon, grew a 7-figure business, visited all the lower 48 states, bought a farm, and today I am still doing what I love to do, selling on Amazon while helping other sellers do it too. Each week, I will share Amazon tips and tricks and bring in guests to share their stories, expertise, and tips on the platforms that they use. Think of this as a sit down with your Amazon bestie where you can learn, ask, start, and grow your online selling business. Welcome to Your Selling Pod. Hey crew, and welcome back. Today, I'm super excited to have Chris Grant join me on the podcast. He is one of the original Amazon teachers. I'm sure you've heard of him. You probably even use one of his many helpful softwares. So let's just jump into it and see how he came to both sell on Amazon and make all these softwares. I feel like this guest needs no introduction. So welcome, Chris, to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
I am so excited. I've been really excited to invite you on, but I felt like I just needed to get like those initial starter podcast jitters out of it. And now I'm like fully prepared with all the questions to ask. So going way back when, how did you first get into online selling? And was it Amazon that you started with?
No, the very first thing I ever sold online was on eBay. I don't know. I kind of think almost everybody cuts their teeth there because it's so simple. You just take some pictures and write a really bad description and throw it up and you're good to go. And so I think the minute I turned 18, I opened up my eBay account. I have to go. I remember it turned 18 not too long ago. My account did. I think I wanted to get a new cell phone or something, and so I sold one of my old cell phones, and I think I sold some baseball cards I had lying around and things like that. So that was kind of my first taste, and then it took a back seat, and I started selling insurance instead. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years into selling insurance, I had turned down an opportunity to take over my own agency. And I could kind of see the writing on the wall that family members were no longer going to be allowed to kind of take over family agencies. And so I started looking for something else. And we tried drop shipping on eBay. We tried a bunch of other things. I sold stuff at flea markets once or twice. I didn't really care for that. I flipped a bunch of what are those storage units. So bought a couple of storage units and sold all the products out of those on Craigslist, and then finally came across Amazon from a podcast. To be quite honest, it was the SPI podcast with Pat Flynn. I heard about it, and then I found guys like Chris Green, and I found groups that were out there, and I just dove in and learned everything I could, and did some retail arbitrage. Really did some thrifting to get started, which I don't suggest anymore, of course. But and then we started doing retail arbitrage. We transitioned to books, and then we transitioned to bulk books. And then kind of today, we really focus on online arbitrage.
Nice. Was it the Selling Family podcast that he did?
It sure was. Yeah.
So many people. It's really kind of crazy that launched them into Amazon.
Yeah, Jessica was the very first person I ever heard of talk about it.
It sounds like you were kind of always an entrepreneur from like a really early age. It was going to be the insurance, and that was just kind of, it's just been in you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we go back even further, I mean, I flipped pizza at my school. I went out and I sold the services for like doing some lawn mowing and doing some snow shoveling in my hometown, and then I had my brothers do the work, and they got wise to that pretty quick though. And then I had some other jobs. I worked at Giant Eagle, which was a local grocery store pushing carts. and I did some landscaping for another family member who owned some office buildings. And the problem that I saw even at a young age, and I was always a big reader, so I read Robert Kiyosaki fairly early, like I don't know, 15, maybe 16 years old. The problem that I always had with jobs is that there was often a ceiling and there was no way to make recurring revenue at all. You know, it was put my time in, get my paycheck, and I really didn't like either one of those things. I did never wanted to hit a glass ceiling where maybe my education level or something like that would keep me from making more money. And the second thing is I always wanted to find something that had some sort of recurring revenue that I didn't have to go out and you don't have to go and shoot what you eat essentially every single second of every single day.
Yep. That's so cool. I have a kind of a similar so in my tiny small town in Oregon, it's like a little farming town, but they have a big 4th of July rodeo every year. And so as early as I can remember, we were selling parking spots, and then we tried to branch out to lemonade stand at one point. I even bought from Oriental Trading when I was in my 20s. I bought some like kids hats, and then I was selling those to people walking down the street. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
something that I always wanted to do. So that it's just kind of in you that you're like, I did the whole corporate thing. I tried to like move up, but then I realized like that was old school thinking. That doesn't happen anymore. People don't grow with companies. And I was like, okay, it's time to do something.
Oh yeah. What part of well, so I had that exact same thought when I was like 17 and I was pushing carts and a cashier. Yeah, our Giant Eagle was fairly open about their wages. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm a cashier and a cart pusher right now, but I always show up, I always do the work. I was like, I could become a front end manager, or I could become a manager of one of the departments, and those guys make about 36,000 a year. I was like, and then I could move up to the store manager, and he makes about 60,000 a year. And I was like, I could go that route. And I was like, by the time I'm 40, I bet I could really I bet I could make six figures. And I'm really glad that I decided not to go that route.
Yep, exactly. Because my career took like a weird turn, and because I came into the job force in 2008 when everything was crashing. And
Hmm.
so I worked odd jobs, and just basically through networking, I had a boss who really enjoyed me. And so wherever she kind of went, she would take me with. And so I ended up at Mattel at one point, and it became very apparent that you had to leave and get a job at a competitor to come back at a high. It was just insane. I don't understand why that happens, but that's the day we live in. So yeah.
Absolutely. And now this is a little bit of an aside, but do you mind if I ask what part of Oregon you're from?
It's called St. Paul. It's in the Willamette Valley. So it's
Okay.
like right off the 5. So it is, let's see, like 30 minutes north of Salem and 40 minutes south of Portland.
Gotcha. Okay. I only ask because my wife was born in a small town in Oregon as well called Grants Pass.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know that area.
Yeah.
So this is another side. We're just gonna go crazy. Do you ever go back there and source at grocery outlets?
So the last time I was in California, I was staying with my brother-in-law in Berkeley, and I passed one, but we just didn't have time. But I've always wanted to go because I hear great things.
Yeah, I'll go back home 2 or 3 times a year just to go source there because I absolutely love it. It's like the best. I could go sourcing once and it will like make my sales crazy for the next 2 months. It's amazing. But
That's
anyway, so
awesome.
let's get back to Amazon for you. So you sounds like you started with retail arbitrage. Were you married at the time, and did your wife also do it, or was it just you?
It was a little bit of both. She would come with me sometimes, but my wife she's not a shopper. It's not something that she enjoys doing. Not even when she's out shopping for herself. She's kind of I want to go in, I want to get it, I want to get out. I'm different. I can linger. I don't always like to do it, but I can. And when there's money just sitting on the shelves, it makes it really easy to spend time in stores for hours and hours and hours. And I also really liked the treasure hunt aspect. And as we moved away from thrifting and we got into retail arbitrage, I really enjoyed making deals. I would talk to managers and bring them donuts, bring them coffee, thank their team, all that kind of stuff to get a heads up about a sale or be able to source the back room for clearance before they went out. And we did really, really well with that. Where my wife absolutely shined is packing boxes. She was incredible at playing what she called adult Tetris, and sending in the products to Amazon. So she did a lot of that for us, to kind of help out until our son was born.
Nice. Did you eventually move to a prep center, or were you guys kind of always doing it yourself?
We did move to a prep center when we kind of hit our stride with retail arbitrage. There were not as many prep centers back then. However, there was one local in Ohio, Ohio FBA Prep and Ship, a husband and wife team that handle it. Really great people. They were doing it out of their house at the time, and they would allow me to drop off my retail arbitrage items, and they would handle all of it for me. So we did end up going that route after a while. After having a kid, it just becomes kind of too much.
Did your model kind of evolve over the years? Because as I'm sure most of our listeners know, that you have a lot of different services for sellers that you now offer. But did you evolve to like online or private label, wholesale? Did you dip into any of those?
I have tried everything. So we've done a little bit of wholesale, not a ton. We have done private label. We had two private label products. I would not call they were private label at the time. Today they'd be known as white label. And we ordered stuff from China, brought it in. One of them was a self-defense product, which I made an incredible listing. I beat everyone. I was priced higher than everyone else, and I sold through all of my inventory in like a week. And then Amazon was like, "Oh, hey, you can't sell this. This is one of the self-defense items that's against our terms of service." And so I just didn't know. And after that happened, I said, maybe private label's not for me, because at the time I was not as good about reading the details that Amazon put out for us. But back then, it was a, hey, don't do that again. No big deal. We're fine. Nowadays, that probably would be like a suspension. The other product was did okay, but wasn't something I knew I was going to sell long term, and so we kind of forgot that and went back to retail arbitrage because at the time it was just a ton of fun. In the retail arbitrage space, the biggest changes that we made was we were clearance sourcers for a long time, and that's all we did. And I knew exactly where all the clearance shelves were at Targets and Myers and Walgreens, and I could go out for 12 hours a day and hit every single one of them, in a 20-mile radius. And then we started doing a little bit more, multi-packs, bundles, and stuff like that to try to get some higher margins and kind of keep the competition away a little bit more.
Nice. What was your first like really big like chase? Like you found something, couldn't believe it was selling for that money, and just drove everywhere to find it.
The first one that I can remember was a Chewbacca mask. I don't know if you remember when that went viral. That lady in her car puts on a Chewbacca mask and she starts laughing at herself, because every time she laughs, the Chewbacca mask makes a noise because when you open the mouth, it roars or whatever it is. That was probably the very first like really hot bolo that I can remember anyway. It was also one of my favorites. So we ended up probably getting, I don't know, 80 or 90 of those at $39.99, which was retail price. And they sold for anywhere between $175 and $235 a piece. And they were selling so fast that we were just listing them in the store and selling out, before we could get to the car, and then merchant fulfilling all of them. So that's probably one of my favorites.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Do you still sell on Amazon today, or have you kind of grown into the teaching?
Yeah, we do still sell on Amazon. So we've got a couple of accounts. We've got one account that has, people have found, and then we have some others that are very, very well hidden. And what I tell people is I sell enough to pay all the bills. So if everything else went away, we'd be able to keep food on the table. but my passion is teaching, building tools and software and products and blogging, and making videos and podcasting for the Amazon community. I don't know, just the amount of personal satisfaction I've gotten from that has far outweighed selling on Amazon for me. So I try to spend as much time in that area as possible.
Nice. Yeah, that I will have to say that almost every other guest that I've had on this podcast references your online arbitrage challenge, one of your courses, and
Awesome.
that you are the best teacher. And they just
That's
love learning from you, and I can hear it in your voice, like you're just a natural teacher.
I do enjoy it, and it's been something. It's helpful to be able to teach other people, but honestly, teaching to me is one of the best ways to really learn something, because I've got to take something that can be difficult, say Keepa for example, and I need to be able to distill it down so that I can explain it to my 10-year-old. And if I can let him understand it, then I should be able to share it with other people, and it makes me have a really deep grasp on what I'm trying to teach.
How did that first come about? Did it just I know for me, I was sharing that I was doing it on the road because I was full-time RVing at the time that I started. So I shared what I was doing for work, and then naturally questions happened and it just evolved from there. How did it come that you started teaching and then got into software and all that?
Well, I'm gonna go way, way back for a moment. Um, when I realized that I actually enjoyed it was in 8th grade, and I had this teacher, Mrs. McDermott, probably the uh, probably the teacher who had the biggest impact on my life. She was real, she was raw, she shot from the hip, but she was an incredible teacher, and she's the one who allowed us to flip pizza at school, and then add on other products. But she had a an assignment for us, and it was, you need to write a paper on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And she's like, I want every single step so that I cannot make a mistake if I've never made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before. And it took me probably 5 or 6 rewrites until she was okay with it. And through that process, I learned like how much you need to break things down for people, so that they can either not make the mistakes you made, or they can fully understand something. And I don't know, that always stuck with me. So I took that into basketball. I We started a basketball team at our little school, and I was a player slash coach, and so that's kind of how I taught other kids to play basketball. And then I took that into selling insurance. Rather than being the guy who was just trying to jam policies down people's throats, I was always trying to educate them. Here's why you need this. Here's why you don't necessarily need this, or the risk you're going to take. And then as I got into the Amazon space, I lost that ability. There was nobody to teach anymore. And so when software started coming on the market a little bit hotter, like tactical arbitrage and things like that, I saw that there was a need for people to understand this big complex tool. And I said, okay, challenge accepted. So I would go in and I'd spend my nights learning everything I could. And then as soon as I figured something out, I would immediately go and make a video on it, partly to reinforce what I had just learned, but partially to kind of get back into that teaching mode that I had enjoyed previously.
Q4 is here. It is the best time of the year as an Amazon seller, but if you don't know what's going on with your profits, your money, your business, do you really know if that business and product is making any money? This is why I love Sellerboard and why I've partnered with them on the Your Selling podcast. Sellerboard truly is the best way for an Amazon seller to see their true business, how much profit you're making on a product, and better yet, why I love it, it forecasts out your total sales for the month, and you can see by quarter, by month, or by the entire year how much money your items are making you. We all know different things come up in Amazon business, from returns to various Amazon fees. All of it is broken down in Sellerboard because, like I've said, if you don't know your business numbers, you don't know what's going on. And as new small business owners, that's the area that gets fallen behind because we truly don't totally understand it. So why not use this software to fully understand what's going on? Sellerboard is offering my listeners 2 months free, no credit card required. All you got to do is head to yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit and sign up. Again, you just log into your Amazon account in Sellerboard and everything is pulled over, including all your past items you've ever had. Enter in your cost of goods, and finally, you will see the true profit picture of what's going on in your business. Again, try it 2 months free at yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit and really understand your business this Q4. You started with teaching on YouTube, right? Is that where, or did you blog?
Well, we started the blog and YouTube kind of at the same time. I enjoy, I'm not good at it, but I do enjoy writing on occasion. And so I would often make a YouTube video, and then I would go back and I would kind of put my thoughts into words and write these blog posts as well. And so they were kind of in conjunction because I know some people are visual learners and I know some people are readers. I'm a reader, even though I make more videos than we do blog posts. But if I read it, it sticks and I remember it forever.
That's so funny. We're very similar. I would rather read a blog than watch a video, even though I make videos.
Yeah.
So funny. So what was the first software that you or I guess offering that you created after starting to teach?
The very first thing I ever did, I think, was actually a tactical arbitrage course. It was like 5 days. It was all live, where we could, take questions. It was really, really small. It was really inexpensive. But that was the first ever paid offering, I think, of digital content. I had done some other things for Amazon sellers. Like I had flipped KDC scanners when everyone wanted a KDC rather than an eYoYo or all these other brands that are around. And so I was able to find them really, really cheap, and I was able to sell them at a little markup to Amazon sellers. But teaching tactical arbitrage was the first thing I ever did. And then I did some lead lists, and then I created Rev ROI after that.
So I don't think I'm familiar with Rev ROI, but I know I use your IP alert all the time. So how did you get into building software? Because that's just, my mind is exploding how you even figured out how to do that.
Good question. So I was wanting to network a little bit more in the Amazon community, and someone who ran a big Facebook group, FBA Today, who's now like my best friend, Nate McAllister, he had asked in a Facebook group, hey, I'm interested in an extension that does this. And he wanted something that would blur out information in Google Chrome so you could make a video and not have to edit it later on down the road. And I said, all right, let's see what I can do here. So I went out to Fiverr and I found someone who could create that extension for me. You would highlight and left click and click the easy blur button, which was what I called my very first extension, and it would blur out anything inside of Google Chrome, whether it was an image or words or anything like that. And so it made it really easy to do screen recording videos, especially inside Seller Central, where you might want to hide some things. And I created that. It cost me $35 to have it made. I put it up on the I put it up on the Google Chrome store, made it free, and I sent him a message. I was like, hey man, you asked about that. I made it. Here's the link to the extension. Go ahead, install it. Let me know what you think. And that started our friendship and business partnership. And then after that, I was sort of hooked. I was like, okay, well, what else can we do? And one of the things that had always bothered me as I was transitioning from retail arbitrage to online arbitrage is I had to remember all of the cash back and discount gift cards and things like that. So I had, 5 different extensions letting me know where I can get the best cash back and so on. And I hated it. At that time, I think I may have been running 8 gigs of RAM. And so it was slowing down the computer, and I said, there's got to be a better way. So I went out and hired someone who could create Rev ROI, which Literally, it's just you click on it, whatever site you're on. If you're on Walmart, Target, Kohl's, etc., click on it, and then it tells you here's the best cash back, here's the best gift cards, and you can click through directly to those sites without having to see all these pop-ups or layovers on your screen. And then it's searchable too. So if you're like, oh, where do I want to, search today? I want to look up and see what Target has available discount wise. You can do all of that in there. And that was my first paid extension for Amazon sellers. Although now it's absolutely free. We just give it away.
Oh, nice. Well, I don't know why I don't have it. I need to get it. I'm going to get it after
Absolutely.
this. I will link all for everyone listening. I'm going to link all of his offerings in the show notes so you could just go and click it. But yeah, I think I use, what is it, Rakuten or whatever, and it pops up and tells me. I always get mad too when I'm buying something on my phone and I got, oh no, I need to go do it on my laptop, even though I know they have an app, but whatever. But now I'm going to get that one.
Yeah, it's great. It's a it's an easy little tool that just makes sure you're getting the best cash back. So like yesterday, I bought what did I have to buy yesterday? I think I bought a pair of shoes for back to school, and of course I went searching for the best price, and then I made sure to get my my cash back, and I didn't use a gift card, but got 7% cash back instead of 4% at Rakuten. It was great.
So let's go through like everything. You can go in the order you made them, or I can just spitball the ones that I know about. And I'm sure there's more that I don't know about.
So every single thing that we've ever created has always kind of been from scratching my own personal itch. Something that bugs you, irritates you, or is a hurdle of some sort. I think those are the best things to create because you know that if you're in the market for that solution, there's most likely going to be other people in the market for that solution as well. So after Rev ROI, we created something called the BrickSeek add-on. I'm sure you're familiar with brickseek.com. Yep. Does a great job telling you where items are discounted in stores and things like that. But it used to make it rather difficult to have the free version and see maybe 2 or 3 different towns in your state that you might want to go and source at. So we made a little extension that would open up several browser tabs and put in the zip codes that you might want to find on brickseek.com. That ended up becoming so popular that BrickSeek actually reached out to me and they're like, hey man, you're killing our servers. Can you throttle this back a little bit? And so, we did, and they were fine with it, but that one's now defunct. And then after that, we created IP Alert. And that idea actually came from a blog post. My buddy wrote a blog post about all the brands that were filing IP complaints at the time when there was something that was really scary. That was like, if I get 1 or 2, I'm going to get suspended. And so he wrote this massive blog post, and I was like, the blog post is incredible. I said, but it's not as helpful as it needs to be for the consumer. And so that night we hired someone and I created IP Alert. We had that up within a few days, and it started as just a simple database with maybe 100 brands. And over the years, it's ebbed and flowed, but now we're up to, I think, 2,500 or 2,600 brands in the database that we know for sure file IP complaints to try to keep the headaches away from sellers.
Yeah, I know. I think it was last year that you guys added the meltable feature to it.
Yeah, we added a meltable feature so that, and that's just something that, Amazon gives us that data in an Excel spreadsheet, yep. But it's not useful. And so we decided to add that in and make sure that you could know whether something's meltable or not. And then finally, we turned it into a sort of an app for your phone so you can check it out when you're doing retail arbitrage. And we may have a few other ideas that are coming in the future.
Well, I have one for you. I've been meaning to email you. If you can add hazmat to that, that'd be awesome. So that
we could try to add hazmat
if it's hazmat, because right now I do the workaround where you pull up Seller Central on your phone and then put the ASIN and see if it's dangerous goods. But yeah, I've been meaning to email you that.
We could give that a shot. The reason it's not there now is because the only way to really check is within Amazon terms of service is for an app or extension to tunnel in to your Seller Central that you're logged into and actually check each ASIN individually. but I'll see if we can figure something out.
Yeah, because I used that originally when it was just IP Alert. I kind of knew like brands that issue IPs. I just kind of after years of selling kind of knew. But I was like, okay, let me try it out. And then now that it's got that mouthful, I gotta tell you, I use it every time I'm outsourcing, even more so.
Oh,
And I
that's
also
awesome.
use it for beauty items because they seem to be the worst with IPs. And so if I've never sold it before, I'm always checking. But I use it every time I'm outsourcing. It's
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank you.
So then when it sounds like your tactical arbitrage training kind of has morphed over the years into your online arbitrage challenge
Hmm.
trainings.
Yeah, so we've got we have four courses at the moment. The flagship, of course, is OA Challenge. That's the one that has done the best, and people seem to really enjoy. And that is kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of 10 years of selling on Amazon, all distilled down into 14 days. So we start with Keepa because it's the foundation of any Amazon business. We go into manual sourcing, we go into automated sourcing, we go into tools that you might need. And all along the way, we're answering every single question that pops up at the same time. Um, and we've done our 10th, we just did our 10th live OA challenge back in, I think, April. We still have Tactical Arbitrage Academy. It's still out there. Tactical Arbitrage is still a great tool. It's still got a really high learning curve. And so I make sure that everything about Tactical Arbitrage is in there. We also made Keepa Academy. Now, if you've taken the OA challenge, you probably don't need Keepa Academy, but there were some people who wanted to know everything I knew about Keepa kind of standalone. And so we created that. And then the most recent thing is we teamed up with a friend of mine, Corey, and we created the wholesale challenge because he does a killer job at wholesale, and he's a good teacher as well. And that went over absolutely gangbusters.
Yeah, I heard about that one. I know a couple of people in it and they said it was great and they're excited and getting rolling and doing all the things. I don't want to give it away, but doing all the things you recommend doing in that course.
Yeah, it was a really good one. Corey did a fantastic job.
Nice. So the thing that's kind of different from with your trainings is they happen live basically on, I think it's on Facebook, right? But it's like 2 weeks you're doing it. So is it available to like buy later on or is it kind of when it's
Yeah,
happening?
we do sell the replays because some people just can't make it live. Those are on the West Coast. I runs at 3 p.m. Pacific when I run an OA challenge, so it can be a little difficult. So we always offer the replays, and not everyone needs to be reminded to show up every day to class. And so we make it a little bit cheaper for those folks who want it. But when we do them live, one of the things that people really do like, it seems, is that there's someone there, every single day of the week to not only teach a concept or a couple of concepts, but then to be able to answer the questions that come up from what you're teaching. And that seems to be the part that people have really enjoyed. Plus, I tell everyone at the end, one of the reasons that we do it this way and that it is live and that you have to show up is because it creates a habit, or at least gets you on the way to creating a habit. So if you're spending 2 hours with me every single day for 14 days, well, now that you don't have to be there with me, you should be spending that 2 hours sourcing or practicing or, doing something that's going to move your business forward.
Yeah, this is just another side, but I recently took up pottery this year and I started with classes and now I've done the classes, but I'm still keeping that day that I used to go to classes to go do pottery because otherwise it'll just fall off. So having that consistent and it's a great jumping off point where you are like in school, basically going to school every day for those 2 weeks to learn and then continuing afterwards. So that's great. Jumping into OA specifically, is there one thing that you kind of notice that people who are doing OA who are new to OA are doing wrong?
Yeah, I so and I don't mean this to be harsh, but I think one of the biggest things is that people expect instant results when they're doing OA. Because if you go on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever you hang out, you see people, oh, I just dropped, X amount of dollars on OA, or, I absolutely crushed this sale. And it seems like there are deals absolutely everywhere, which there are deals everywhere on the internet. But when you're just starting out, you don't know where to look. So you go spend some time in the clearance section at Target, or you go and find the Nike sale at Foot Locker, or whatever it is, and nothing quite meets your standards. And then after maybe 2 or 3 hours, or maybe 2 or 3 days, they're like, this isn't for me. There's nothing there. Doing online arbitrage at scale is real, and getting good at it is just a function of getting up to bat enough. If you spend a couple of weeks, 2 hours a day, eventually you're going to catch your stride. And so I think people need to lengthen their time horizon, especially when they're just getting into OA, because there is a steep learning curve. It can be a little disheartening not to find anything for a couple hours at a time, and seeing other people, doing what you want to do. So the biggest thing is keep at it, and think in months, not weeks.
Yep. That's kind of Amazon in general. If you're just jumping in and assuming it's going to work right away, you're going to be severely disappointed.
Absolutely.
Since you've been a business owner for pretty much your whole life in one way or another, what is one of the best things about it and one of the worst? And I say that the worst can't be anything like bookkeeping or taxes, because that's everyone's, unless you love it, that's everyone's worst. Like,
I do not love those things. So the best thing about being a business owner is the freedom. We've been shopping for a house here recently, and that has been a lot of meetings with realtors, a lot of meetings with house inspectors, going and looking at houses, driving all over town. So it's taken us away from the business quite a bit recently. If I had a job, I would only be able to do that after 6 p.m., which would then cut into family time. It would cut into, sitting down at the dinner table with everybody. And I never wanted that for my family. I always wanted to be able to be there for everything. Yeah, I coach my son's basketball team. I'm going to coach his football team this year. We go to the gym together with both my boys. I can make it to every doctor's appointment, and my son had to have a crown put in not too long ago, and I was there the entire time, and both mom and dad can go, not just mom has to make all the doctor's appointments and all that stuff. So that's the best thing, is the freedom. The worst thing is also the freedom. The thing is there's no time clock to punch. There is no one telling us when the deadline is. I mean, your customers will eventually, they'll tell you, but there's no one to kind of hound me about when something needs to be finished. And so I have to manage that time and make sure that I'm, behind the keyboard enough and getting things done. And I'm not the best at delegating or asking for help. And so, because that's one of my downfalls, there can be times where you're like, oh, shoot, I've got to get all these things done. And that can create stress and things like that, and make you not want to work, and make you want to go do something else instead. So being able to manage that is something that's really important, and can be one of the worst parts of being a business owner.
yep. Are you gonna, or is your family gonna be a part of the business with you as they grow up? I mean, I'm assuming your kids are little right now.
I have a 10-year-old, and we recently adopted a 17-year-old.
Okay.
So my 10-year-old, he asks tons and tons of questions. And, we talk, we'll go to a restaurant, and he asks things like, okay, daddy, if this drink was $2.50, what's the margin for this restaurant? So we talk about that kind of stuff all the time, but he's not to the point yet where he really cares about money and wants to make his own. But we've driven around our neighborhood, and we've picked up some things off the curb and sold them on Facebook and stuff like that, just so I can show him that there is money everywhere. With my newest son, we were at Target just the other day. We were looking for a few things in the beauty section, and I came across a toothbrush. It was an electric toothbrush. It was marked off like 60%. And I was like, hey, you want me to show you how to make some money like that? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So I scan it. And I'm like, here you go. I'm like, we could sell this thing, merchant fulfill it, and we'll still make 30 bucks. I was like, do you want to do it? And I was like, we'll go through the whole process. And I was like, then I'll give you the 30 bucks. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we went through the whole process. I showed him how to list it and everything like that. Sure enough, 3 or 4 days later, it sells. And now he's $30 richer. And I'm like, that's how you don't ever have a job. And he's like, all right. So his eyes were opened a little bit. But he really loves real estate as well. So, we've also been talking a lot about, homes and financing and all those kind of things, so he can be ready to kind of go down the path he wants to go as well.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people go to find you? What is your social media or whatever of choice?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love doing these kind of things. So I'm thankful you asked me. I am at Clear the Shelf everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, although I haven't opened that up except for once. But at Clear the Shelf everywhere. My blog is cleartheshelf.com. Everything has got that handle on it. So if you Google that or search it on any social media, I should pop up.
Nice. So I'll link all of them in the show notes again. But thank you so much for joining me. And I enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more and realizing like how very similar we are.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're, I think a lot of us probably are. It seems like we have a lot of differences, as Amazon sellers, but I think a lot of us are very, very similar. We're all a little strange, in our own weird ways. But it's a fantastic community to be a part of. So it's been a ton of fun, being part of this community over the years.
Yeah, that's a good thing that I just want to add in there. If anyone's listening and you're not a part of any community, whether it's Chris's or mine or any other person who has a community for sellers out there, it's so important. You learn so much. I learned, like Chris said, I learn a lot just by teaching others of different things about Amazon selling that I probably wouldn't have learned if not for just a community there. So get into a community wherever, make sure it fits you. If it's in the wrong one, join a different one. Don't just give up. But community is so important for Amazon sellers.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you want to check out any of these programs that he offers, I've linked them all in the show notes. Now, the online challenge opens every couple of months. It happens a couple times a year, but he does offer the replays, and they are the thing I hear the most about. Yes, I've purchased it, and yes, I've not yet taken it. But everyone in my community who has taken either Keep Academy or the OA Challenge absolutely raves about it. He is a great teacher, and he's going to teach you everything you need to know about those facets of Amazon selling. So definitely check it out. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, I would love to chat with you and hear about your online selling experience. So whether that's selling on Etsy, selling on eBay, Amazon, Poshmark, Mercury, any of them, if you sell online, I want to chat with you. So reach out to me at podcast@yoursellingguide.com. And until next week, happy sourcing.